On October 22nd, something happened along the U.S.-Mexico border that stunned even the most experienced agents in American law enforcement. It began quietly, with encrypted communications between the FBI's Special Operations Command and the U.S. Navy's Coastal Response Unit. For weeks, there had been whispers of an empire operating in the shadows, a cartel network worth $5.8 billion, running its empire through a web of fake ports, private airstrips, and secret tunnels beneath the Sonoran Desert. That morning, before the sun even touched the horizon, the first encrypted orders were transmitted. The objective was simple but dangerous: infiltrate, expose, and dismantle the largest cartel logistics chain ever discovered on North American soil. Intelligence had confirmed that several high-value targets were assembling in a fortified compound less than 20 miles from the border, a site the FBI codenamed Black Dune, at exactly 4:03 a.m. A U.S. Navy P-8 Poseidon surveillance aircraft switched to blackout mode and began circling high above the desert, feeding real-time infrared imagery to an FBI command van hidden deep within Arizona. Beneath the aircraft, 24 agents moved silently through the darkness, guided only by their night vision optics and the faint pulse of their radios. They had been tracking this network for more than 2 years, a network that smuggled not only narcotics, but weapons, counterfeit currency, and human cargo. When the signal came through, "Echo Green, engage!" everything exploded into motion. Navy SEALs and FBI HRT teams breached the first perimeter simultaneously. Within seconds, the compound's floodlights blazed on, revealing steel gates, armed guards, and fortified towers. What the agents saw inside looked less like a drug camp and more like a military fortress. Armored vehicles, satellite uplinks, and entire warehouses stacked with crates, marked only by serial numbers and foreign symbols. The first shots were exchanged near the western gate. FBI snipers provided cover as drones released by the Navy's ISR unit mapped the structure in real time. One by one, agents breached reinforced doors, securing evidence rooms, laboratories, and encrypted servers. Inside one vault, investigators found gold bars, military-grade rifles, and hundreds of flash drives storing encrypted financial transactions, each one linked to offshore accounts stretching from Hong Kong to Dubai. By 5:40 a.m., the cartel's defensive lines began to collapse. Several suspects tried to flee through hidden tunnels that led into an unfinished drainage system. But waiting for them were Navy divers and FBI field teams who had already mapped every exit route. The standoff turned into chaos as explosions rocked the compound. Surveillance footage later revealed that cartel lieutenants detonated sections of their own facility to destroy evidence. Meanwhile, across the border in Sonora, a second strike team uncovered something even more shocking: an underground laboratory the size of a football field. Equipped with high-pressure reactors, chemical storage tanks, and an advanced distribution network disguised as a water purification system. Investigators would later confirm that this single site had produced more than 60% of all synthetic methamphetamine entering the southern United States. As dawn broke, helicopters thundered across the desert sky. From the air, the destruction looked surgical: precise strikes on storage zones, hangars, and convoys attempting to flee. Local residents later described the sound as a rolling earthquake. But for the agents on the ground, the mission was far from over. Intelligence analysts had intercepted transmissions suggesting that one of the cartel's main financial architects was still hiding somewhere in the compound's central wing. When the assault teams breached the final structure at 7:12 a.m., they discovered a massive underground bunker lined with reinforced steel doors and biometric locks. Inside were rows of computers running encrypted financial software and a small server farm connected to satellite uplinks pointing toward Europe. The data recovered from those servers would later expose a network of international shell companies used to launder billions through luxury real estate and crypto markets. By 8 a.m., the compound was secured. U.S. Navy logistics officers began cataloging assets: over $400 million in cash, narcotics valued at $1.6 billion, and dozens of vehicles designed to mimic legitimate Border Patrol convoys. The FBI later confirmed that this operation alone dismantled nearly 30% of the cartel's Western supply chain. News of the raid broke hours later, but not through mainstream channels. Initial reports were suppressed under national security protocols. It wasn't until October 23rd that local media in Texas and Arizona began reporting the explosions heard before dawn and the convoys of black SUVs and armored trucks moving north. By then, forensic teams were still combing through evidence, flash drives, satellite phones, and coded ledgers that traced billions of dollars across 6 countries. Behind the scenes, U.S. officials privately described the raid as one of the largest joint operations ever conducted between the FBI and the U.S. Navy on domestic soil. What shocked even the intelligence community was how deeply the cartel had integrated with private logistics firms, some of which had direct government contracts. The exposure of those connections led to immediate investigations within U.S. Customs, port authorities, and international freight companies. But the story didn't end there. Weeks after the operation, encrypted chatter picked up by U.S. cyber intelligence teams suggested that remnants of the cartel were regrouping, this time with foreign backers. Several of the offshore accounts tied to the operation were traced to corporations based in Eastern Europe and Southeast Asia. The scale of this network hinted that what the U.S. uncovered on October 22nd was only one chapter of a much larger global enterprise. To this day, official agencies refuse to release the full after-action report, but insiders claim that at least 3 top cartel figures were extracted alive and are now in federal custody. The data recovered continues to fuel international investigations, with dozens of arrests across Mexico, Panama, and Colombia. For the public, the only visible evidence of what happened that night were the burned-out compounds, seized vehicles, and a series of classified photos showing rows of Navy personnel guarding pallets of confiscated assets under desert sunlight. What began as a rumor, a whisper about a $5.8 billion empire, ended with one of the most significant coordinated strikes in U.S. law enforcement history. The events of October